Welcome to Sweet Valley Diaries, the podcast where, hey, the twins solve crimes now. Super thriller number 1, Double Jeopardy. Hi, welcome to this very special hiatus bonus edition of this podcast, Sweet Valley Diaries, where it's special for multiple reasons. One is that we're not supposed to be having podcasts now. This is break time, but we just couldn't stay away. And reason number 2 is the very, very special guest on today's episode, my father, Don Flaxbart. Hello, Dad.
How you doing, Marissa?
Oh, I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
I'm doing just dandy. I've got my cup of coffee here.
Oh, I have my cup of coffee too. That's nice.
If I think too much about the book, I might have to go to gin.
Well, you're in a different time zone, so you're a little bit closer to gin o'clock than we are here in California. But so a funny thing about this book that we can share with the listeners is that unlike, usually the directive that I give my readers, my guest readers, is read the book as close to the recording as possible, because otherwise you'll forget what happens in the book. And circumstances partially created by the availability or lack thereof of these super novels made it so that we have both not read this book super recently. I mean, it was recently in the sense of for books in general, but not for a Sweet Valley High novel. It's been, when did you finish this? A week ago?
Yeah, a week ago. Maybe a week and a half, actually.
Yeah, so it's probably about 2 weeks for me. But I actually think that this book has a bit more sticking power than your average Sweet Valley High novel, and maybe even more so than your average Sweet Valley Super Edition, because this is our first ever Sweet Valley Super Thriller. So, were you thrilled?
Well, I think this book was fun in a Murder, She Wrote kind of lightweight, let's get through it kind of way.
Yeah. And, it was like a cozy mystery.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, someone does die. Someone is murdered, and someone is sent to jail for being framed for the murder, but we'll get into it. But this is a new it's a new chapter in the Sweet Valley universe, and this book was published in December of 1987. So we're going back in time a little bit from where we are in the regular stream of things. We had gotten into 1988. And my plan for this hiatus is to kind of catch us up so that we're reading the Super Edition books in time with where they were published, or we're caught up to where we are with the other books. But it doesn't really matter that much, because in this book, I guess the one thing that's important in terms of continuity is that Jessica has not met A.J. Morgan yet. Dad, I don't expect you to know what that means, but...
And I do not.
Okay. So that's important because Jessica is very much on the prowl in this book, and it is one of the more disturbing things about the book. But I'm trying to think if I have any other prelude before we just get into the plot. This book, like the other Super Editions, takes place during the summer, but it's this amorphous summer. We're still in kind of junior year time, to the extent that even though it's the summer, so in theory the twins should be prepping for their senior year of high school, the book still refers to them as juniors in high school. So it's just kind of ignoring, or if I shouldn't say kind of, it is fully ignoring the typical progression of teenagers through school. There's no anticipation of senior year whatsoever in this book. Nor could there be, really, because,
yes.
Next month in real time, in, what did I say, December 87? So in January of 88, the twins are going to be juniors again, and they are going to have no memory of what happens, of the crimes that they're going to solve in the future. It's really kind of a mindfuck when you think about it.
Well, let's just say that Jessica may have the lust of a senior, but she probably has the mental capacity of a sophomore or freshman.
Okay, well, I don't relish hearing you say the phrase lust of a senior, but...
Well, she's going after an older guy.
Okay, yeah. So we can get to this real quick. The basic premise for any... another really fun little thing about this book is that this was kind of crowdsourced having you as the guest for this book, Dad, because there were a couple of next choices where we could have gone. We still haven't read this spring super edition called Spring Fever, but when I knew that I was going to get a chance to talk with you and I wanted you to do one of these super editions, I kind of asked Instagram. So Gladiators, if you're not following the podcast on Instagram, it's at Sweet Valley Diaries. This is the kind of thing you can get in on. And Instagram, it was amazing. It was honestly, I was so tickled, as were you, I think, with how excited the Gladiators were in general at the prospect of you being on the podcast at all, but particularly at the prospect of you reading a super thriller, which I think these are pretty beloved by readers, people who have read these in the past. Uh-huh. One person even said that they thought you would make a great detective. So that's fun to think about.
Well, my competition in this book isn't so much the so-called detective and sergeant. At this book is pretty amateurish.
yeah. Weird cops.
But we'll get to that.
Getting back to weird cops in Sweet Valley.
Can I ask you a question? I mean, this is a thriller, so what do we do about spoilers, or do we not worry about it?
Spoilers? Well, I think we should tell the story chronologically. Well, we have already indicated that there is a murder and there is an imprisonment, but let's tell the story in chronological order, shall we? And so to start this tale, the twins have gotten summer jobs at a summer internship, basically, at the local newspaper, which of course Elizabeth is over the moon about, and Jessica is not happy about at all. The only thing that's kind of making it palatable for Jessica is that there is this new, hot young reporter named Seth Miller, who she thinks she can entice to date her. Dad, do you recall how old Seth Miller is?
Seth Miller is 21 by my recollection, and Jessica, I believe, is 16.
I believe Seth Miller is 22. He has graduated from college. He writes mystery novels under the pen name Lester Ames. So really doing a great job for a 22-year-old.
Yeah.
But 21 or 22, I wish I could say that through the course of this book, Seth Miller completely dismisses Jessica's advances as being totally out of hand. Nothing happens between them, but he does offer to take her out for dinner at a couple of different points. He's definitely not quashing her interest, I would say. Would you?
Well, I would not say he's quashing her interest, and that's one of the gray areas in the book, because at least as the book tells it, he seems not particularly self-aware or doesn't acknowledge that she has this tremendous interest in a romantic interest in himself.
That's true.
He proceeds everything as if she's just tremendously interested in getting a good scoop, even if she's unreliable.
That's true. It's unclear whether he has any idea at all that she's into him, which maybe that's a saving grace for Seth Miller. To think it's so out of the question that you couldn't even countenance it.
Yeah, but he's an investigative reporter. How dumb can you be? Jeez. I mean, seriously, maybe this time that's danger, because she's supposed to be his assistant. If you can't realize that she's coming onto you, you got real troubles.
That's true. But I think we can say right off the bat that Seth Miller does have real troubles, because the first thing he does in this whole book is, so Jessica is trying to figure out a way to get him interested. And so she thinks that if she can spend some time with him, that's all it'll take. That's Jessica's MO. That's nothing new. The thing that's new is that she decides to make up a story. The Box Tree Cafe has had a fire, and she decides to tell Seth, who's writing up a little report about it. It's a dumb little report, because it's a standard fire. It was just like a grease fire in a kitchen, and they put it out, and they're going to go back to business. But Jessica comes up to him, and she's like, I heard from a source that it was arson. And he is in disbelief. This is not there's like, you must have a great source. And she's just like, oh, well, I can't tell you my source, but I do have a great source. And so then they drive down to the Box Tree Cafe to ask about it. And the guy who Seth just interviewed and told him all the stories, like, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. I was standing right here. I saw the whole thing. Like, it's just... Jessica,
it was a skillet caught fire. Yeah.
Yeah, a skillet caught fire. Yeah. And it was her house of cards. It was very rickety from the beginning. Jessica didn't think this through at all. And then she's upset when Seth is really angry with her about making up this story. She's like, aw, well, I didn't think you would care that. I don't know. She didn't think any steps ahead.
No, she didn't, but it's even worse than that. I mean, if you go back that, she's trying to think up storylines, and so she imagines that her neighbor gardening out there is burying bodies.
Oh, yes. Oh, that was straight out of Rear Window, right? Every time it was just like, oh, this was very much inspired by Rear Window, because Jessica is kind of like hot on the mystery train, and she's trying to find mysteries everywhere she looks, and that's one of the ones that she thinks she finds. So,
and then the book says she comes to think that she can't sort out what she's been imagining to tell and what's really true. So, that's kind of wild.
Yeah. It's a problem or it's setting up a problem that Jessica has cried wolf now to Seth. So keep that in your back pockets, gladiators. So the other big thing of this summer that happens with the Wakefields is that Stephen Wakefield is home from college, and he has brought a friend who is from Nebraska or South Dakota.
South Dakota, I believe.
It's one of the Dakotas. And so he does, instead of going home for the summer, he is like a pre-law kid. He also has his own internship. Conveniently or inconveniently at the same building, in fact, as the newspaper offices in downtown Sweet Valley, which is seeming like a bigger city every day. And Adam Maitland, he comes from a poor family.
Well, they're farmers.
That's true. They're farmers. They're just not. They're not the kind of family that lives in Sweet Valley, I guess. Right. They're not city people. And they are not wealthy. So it's really, he's very passionate young man passionate about the law, which of course Ned Wakefield is like losing his shit over over this kid's interest in the law. Because there's one thing Ned Wakefield cares about, it's the law and the practice of being a lawyer. So Adam Maitland comes to their house, and we learn a few things about him, other than that his parents are farmers and he's interested in the law. One thing we learn about him is that he has this, he starts to say fiance, but then he cuts himself off. He is in love with this girl named Lori. And here's the story with Lori. You see, he said heavily, Lori's really all alone in the world. Her parents were killed in a plane crash in the Azores when she was a little kid. Her grandfather took custody of her, but never had time for her. She was raised by servants. She's never really had a family at all. I'm all she's got. Elizabeth looked sympathetically at him. She must be incredibly grateful to have you around. Jessica held her head in her hands. Great! This was even worse than she had expected. If Adam felt sorry for this pathetic creature, there was no telling how difficult it might be to lure him away. But she was more convinced than ever that he needed a little fun in his life. This was going to be a bigger challenge than she had suspected. Also, one more thing. When Mrs. Wakefield asks about Lori, he says her grandfather is an oil tycoon named Tucker Hamilton. Have you heard of him? He's one of the richest men in the state. So lest you think that Jessica is trying to lure Adam Maitland also for herself. No. Jessica wants Adam and Elizabeth to hook up this summer. Now, does Elizabeth have a steady boyfriend in Jeffrey French? Yes, she does. But Jessica, Jessica doesn't like steady boyfriends at this chapter of her life. So she is trying to get Adam and Elizabeth together, and Lori is going to create a problem with that.
I have not read anything with Jeffrey French, but Lila says he's a little bit immature for I don't know, for Elizabeth.
Yeah,
or
but
something.
that's a load of crock. Sorry, what a load of crock. I was going to say. I don't know why I'm avoiding saying shit. It's a crock of shit from Lila, because Lila has been after Jeffrey French on 2 separate occasions, and she's just jealous of Elizabeth. But
Okay.
but that's true, Daddy. Your last book that you were on was the one where Todd is back in town for Christmas, special Christmas, and he ends up going off with friggin' Suzanne Devlin. So that was pre-Jeffrey French. That was before Jeffrey came to town.
Okay.
Jeffrey, I mean, in my heart of hearts, Jeffrey, he's no Todd, but, he's fine. He's a photographer. I mean, he's a teenager. He's a 16-year-old photographer for the school newspaper, and he's perfectly nice, and he and Elizabeth get along like gangbusters, so that's Jeffrey. Elizabeth has shown no interest in Adam. Oh, in fact, Dad, isn't it the case that I think Jessica decided to get Adam and Elizabeth together before she met Adam?
I can't recall, but I think that's true.
She came up with the scheme, as soon as, first she's like, what? Someone else is going to live in this house this summer? I can't believe it. The house is so crowded. And they were like, Jessica, we've been talking about this for weeks. And her next thought, after being all hurt about having to share a crowded house, is, wait a second, I could hook this guy up with my sister. So, and it's I don't think that in and of itself does sound harmless, but we will see that it is so harmful. Like, what Jessica does is deeply harmful in this book. It's amazing.
Yes.
Which I guess we can go ahead and skip to that Jessica decides that she's going to kick things off, since it's going to be such a big challenge. She's going to go sit down at Elizabeth's typewriter, which got a name drop, just like it was a car or something in this book, We were talking before we started about how all of the car make and model always gets called out. Well, do you remember what kind of typewriter Elizabeth has?
It's an Olivetti.
An Olivetti typewriter. So that was
very nice manual typewriter for those who collecting.
Yeah, I Googled it. I was like, oh, well, if Elizabeth has an Olivetti typewriter, maybe I want an Olivetti typewriter. And I looked them up, and they were like $400. Like, okay.
Yeah, they're not cheap.
Nice. So, so she sits down. Jessica sits down at Elizabeth's typewriter and types a love letter from Adam to Elizabeth, and then hides it. I have it here. Shall I read it?
Sure.
Okay, so this is Jessica's letter from, quote unquote, from Adam. And Elizabeth is, in this passage, Elizabeth is reading it. She's just found it. It says, "Dear Liz, please don't think I'm a terrible coward to write you instead of bringing this up in person. I guess I am a coward. If I weren't, I would have broken up with Lori the minute I met you." Elizabeth felt her face flush. She could barely believe it. Dropping her gaze to the bottom of the letter, she saw the familiar name, and her eyes widened with astonishment. Adam! Somewhat dazed, she continued reading. "Liz, it's true. I'm in love with you. I know I haven't shown it, and the truth is, I won't be able to show it to you. Not yet. Not until I figure out what to do about Lori. She's so vulnerable. I don't want to hurt her until I have to. So please be patient with me if I treat you like just another friend while I'm trying to get it all sorted out. You know you're not just another friend to me. Girl I just met."
Yeah.
"I love you. I can't live without you. You're all I really want in this whole world. And if I can't figure out something soon, I may have to do something drastic. Love, Adam."
Dun, dun, something dun. Drastic. Yeah.
So little does Jessica know that those words are going to be very poorly chosen. And shame, shame, shame on Elizabeth Wakefield for not seeing through this letter immediately. Like, this seems fishy. All of the things are lined up so that Adam can't show his affection to me. He hasn't shown any sign of being interested in me. He explains that away in the letter. And it was written on a typewriter. Somebody who felt comfortable coming into my room using my typewriter, because she can tell that it's her typewriter. She recognizes the typing. And
and they've never done anything, I think is what you're saying. They've never gone out, they've never done anything.
They've barely spoken to each other.
The best it would be kind of a love at first sight kind of infatuation. So it would be kind of bizarre.
And unfortunately, what she decides to do is to just pretend like she never saw it and hide it away, which isn't the worst choice in the world, honestly. But it ends up being a pretty bad choice. But because if she confronted Adam about it ever, it would have really helped things out. But I think that she should have read this letter and immediately been like, Jessica, come on. Because she knows what Jessica's like. But then we'd have we would still have a book, but we wouldn't have this particular juicy plot line.
Yeah.
And because, oh my God. So having learned nothing from her first lie to Seth about the fire, Jessica goes to Seth with another lie about a bank robbery. I think she's just hoping that it's true because she thinks that she's come up with something that seems logical. She thinks that her neighbor, right, is burying the money. Is that what it is? She connects the dots. Money. She connects the dots. So there was a bank robbery, and her neighbor's been digging in his garden an awful lot. Her neighbor must be the one who stole the money and buried it. And Seth, like just a really A1 crack journalist, is like, listen, if we're gonna run with this, you got to really be sure. So they write up a draft of the story and send it to the editor, Mr. Rob, and he makes a few phone calls, then calls them both into his office and is like, what the fuck? Like, this is total nonsense. Like, what have you done? And he basically, he's going to fire them both, which doesn't matter that much to Jessica, but matters a hell of a lot to Seth, who, like, this is his first journalism job out of school. Like, he really fucked up. I mean, he should be fired. Like, let's get that straight. But
yeah. I mean, what do you learn in journalism school? It's your sources to check them, and like, if he's, I mean.
And since you mentioned that, Dad, let's just take this opportunity on this tiny little platform to say, everybody know your source and check your source with everything you read or talk about anywhere. Sources is very important to know your source. And if your source is Jessica Wakefield, maybe it's bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be the old guy here, but there was a time when newspapers and stuff actually cared about the truth of their stories, and some people still do, but you can't rely on it when you're just trying to count eyes anymore. But
I think have to be really careful about not only the paper, but like who's writing it, right? What section of the paper is it in? Is it an op-ed in the Washington Post, or is it a front page news story on the Washington Post? I don't want to throw the Washington Post under the bus, but necessarily, but like, what section of the paper is it in, or is it ABC5news.com and, breaking, like, and you go to the website and it's just like covered with advertisements. Like, I don't know. Anyway, we could have a whole other podcast about news, literacy, and maybe we should, but for now let's just say that Jessica is like, mea culpa. I mean, she doesn't literally say that because I don't think Jessica knows Latin, but she falls she throws herself at the mercy of Mr. Rob. She says it was not his fault, please don't fire him, which results in Seth basically just having no chance of writing about anything really important anytime soon. And Jessica has to go take a job, not in the newsroom. She's going to go help somebody like catalog microfiche or something boring like that.
Who's a real taskmaster.
Yes, Sandra. She was the one who had to go work for terrible Sandra in the smelly old computer room. But Jessica has the audacity to say to Seth, "You don't have to thank me," she assured him once they were out of Mr. Rob's earshot. "I know I owed it to you after getting some of my facts a little wrong." You're not kidding, Seth said furiously. Jessica, I don't know what I ought to do. Do you realize how close you came to costing me my entire career? In fact, he fumed, you probably did cost me my career. Rob will never take me seriously again, no matter what I do. Jessica blinked. You mean you're not proud of the way I took all the blame in there? Who else should have taken it? It was your fault, wasn't it? Seth demanded. And she's like... So that was funny. For Jessica Jessica is still like, I just don't understand. But anyway, sometimes narcissists have a hard time admitting that something was their fault. So... Anyway, that's a double strike. I had actually forgotten. I'm glad I made this note because I had forgotten that Jessica had yet another major wolf crying incident, really much bigger than the box tree one because this one almost got Seth fired. So one thing that this sets up is that now Jessica's going to be working late at the newspaper because Sandra's such a taskmaster. She has to stay until she finishes all her work. So she's there really late. So she's leaving work late one night and keeping in mind that this is the same building where Adam works. She sees in the parking garage, which she's already said is creepy. She sees his car is still parked there. And then she's just kind of generally freaked out, like just walking through the garage. And she's going to her car. And she sees this white Trans Am and a man carrying a big, suspicious-looking, body-shaped kind of, like, load. And then she sees a hand fall from the blanket. And she screams. And then she and the man make eye contact. She sees him. She sees that the Trans Am has a sort of, like, jagged S, like a backward Z on the back. Like she doesn't get the license plate, but she gets a lot of clues, and she's so shaken because she's sure that she's just seen somebody carrying a dead body. But as you alluded to before, she has been kind of obsessed with mysteries lately, so that's already going to put her on her back foot in terms of convincing anybody she really saw that. And her mind is especially racing in this parking garage because she's so creeped out by it.
Yeah. Some of the things are never quite explained fully, so you just have to take them as coincidences, you know.
Oh, yeah. So. There are a lot of coincidences in the book. I think the fact that Adam works in the same office building as the twins is one of the bigger coincidences in the whole book. But describing this scene reminds me that we forgot. I'm rusty after a few weeks off here. We forgot to describe the cover of the book.
Oh.
So can you guess, Dad, looking at the cover of your book, why telling that tale reminded me of the cover?
Because, are we giving too much away? Because
I don't know what you're going to say.
Oh, okay. Because Tom Winslow, who is the true perpetrator who killed Laurie Hamilton.
You're already way past me, but that's okay.
Mistakes Elizabeth for Jessica. So is that what you're saying?
That is not what I'm saying, but that's great. That's a glimpse ahead. The cover does have both Jessica and Elizabeth on it, looking, it's really actually a great example of Jessica versus Elizabeth, because you can look at this at a glance and know exactly which one is which. There's one who's dressed like, Dolly Parton in 9 to 5, and there's one who's dressed in like a cute little, sweater top. Like there's the serious working person and the like casual fun girl. But the setting, honestly, of this cover is really notable because at this point in time, in the progression of all the books that we've read, almost every cover, with very few exceptions, is set in a kind of like empty sort of portrait, like in front of a backdrop. Basically, it's just two characters in front of a blank backdrop. But where are they in this cover?
They're in a garage.
They're definitely in a parking garage. Like you can't see a car or anything, but you can tell by the cement, you can tell by the light up above that this is a parking garage.
Yeah, and they're, I guess it's a big parking garage. I think they're on the 6th floor. Is that
it's
right?
like a multi-level parking garage, of which we have many in Southern California. And they are both looking very frightened. Jessica is looking at us. Elizabeth is looking off into the left, her left. And they're both very scared, as they should be, because there's a murderer after them. So I don't really think that the thing that you divulged about Tom Winslow is that much of a spoiler, because the book, I mean, just like the nature of how thrillers work, like what happens right away when Jessica goes home and she explains what happened and nobody really believes her until the police call, and it turns out that Adam has been arrested because Laurie's dead body was found in the trunk of his car. So it's like, uh-oh.
So this is one of those things that I was trying to allude to as an unexplained coincidence, because it's not surprising that Adam would be working late. He's doing an internship and stuff. But the fact that the fellow who killed him would actually drive late at night and say, "Oh, I know Adam's going to be there, and I'm going to find his car." How did he know that was Adam's car? He was going to stash the body and do it. There had to be a lot more conniving going on in the background to make this happen.
Oh, definitely a lot of conniving going on in the background. I had always interpreted it as the reason that Adam's car was still there was because Adam had been arrested, so he couldn't have driven his car away. But if Laurie's body was found in the trunk of Adam's car, and that's why Adam was arrested, I feel like the car would have been like impounded and taken as evidence. Like it wouldn't have been just left in the parking lot, parked there.
Yeah, it's a lot of unexplained. It was very convenient to find a single car on the few floors down that was Adam, unless you take that the fellow who did it really was scouting all the stuff out, and that would have been a very intriguing part of the book if they would have put it into it.
Yeah, that's true. But so, I mean, a lot of the book, I guess what I was getting at earlier was that even though there's mounting evidence against Adam in the book, I think just like if you know anything about the way a mystery novel works, you know as soon as Adam's arrested that he's not guilty, because otherwise that would be a pretty boring book, right? Like if the guy that would be a twist at this point if you wrote a novel like that and it turned out that the guy they thought did it was actually the guy who did it. But that's not really how these things tend to work. So
yeah, I would say in terms of these mystery novels, this is not thrillers, I guess this is, because there's not that much of a mystery, but both Laurie, who got murdered, and Adam are kind of MacGuffins. I mean, Laurie, all we know about is this little bit that Adam told and some background stuff to do that. So we don't really care about her because she's never has any active role in the book. And Adam immediately gets parked off to jail, and we barely see him at all. So
no, we see what he's like in jail, which is increasingly like unhinged, but which isn't helping his case at all. But you know what? When I was describing Adam and Laurie earlier, we didn't say anything about Tom Winslow and who that is. So when Adam talks about Laurie, he describes that she. Her grandfather wants her to marry this other guy. And so the grandfather hates Adam, and wants her to marry this guy from this rich family. And she doesn't like that guy. And that guy is this rich guy named Tom Winslow. And, but he's like he doesn't live in Sweet Valley. Like he's not, as far as I know, like they're not from Sweet Valley. So it's just sort of mentioned in passing. But, yeah, so he is kind of like a prime suspect in terms of as a reader. If you're a careful reader, you're like, oh, I bet Tom did it.
Yeah, but not in terms of the police. And I guess the other thing we should say is the description of this guy's emotionally unstable, which would make him even more a prime suspect.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you mean Tom Winslow?
Tom Winslow, yeah.
Yeah, it's honestly a little bit, I mean, from a 21st century perspective, it's pretty reckless. Like, they talk in passing about how he has a history of depression, as if somehow that is like a sign of mental instability, like that would make you a murderer. It's really like the kind of like stigmatization of any kind of mental issue that nowadays I feel like are very careful about, but here it was right on the page in 1987. Like, oh no, he's been depressed in the past. He's a madman. Like,
well, psychologically, that's just one of many things in here that are a little bit strange. I mean, it's like clearly he's got some personality order. He's murdered somebody in a sense of rage, but that isn't the disorder they're describing.
Yeah. Well, no, not at all. And like what we come to find out is that there actually wasn't ever anything between Tom and Lori. Like Lori, they didn't have a relationship that she ended. Like he was into her and she never reciprocated his feelings. Like
she went on a couple dates with him because her grandfather wanted her to hook up with him and still wants her
to marry him. To marry him.
Yeah, to marry him. Yeah. Well, first she wanted to hook up with, then she wanted to, I mean, in order to marry him, right? So,
sure.
Because they only went on a few dates, you know?
Yeah, I get it. It's very like...
he was a very generous grandfather. He didn't want her to marry him sight unseen. She got 2 dates first.
Oof. I know the grandfather is a bad guy, but boy, it's really upsetting to think about this grandfather who his daughter and son-in-law die in a plane crash, and then his granddaughter is murdered. Like, oof, that's some real.
I know it kind of has a gothic or not even maybe 19th century sense of hooking up for like she's royalty and they need to keep the line intact. Like,
yeah,
you know,
very much so. As careful listeners can possibly guess, there's a new piece of evidence against Adam that's making it really look bad for Adam. It's the letter that Jessica
wrote. Do tell.
Elizabeth is really torn up about it. Like, what should I do about this letter? And she talks to her dad about it. They decide to go to the police. And so now the police have this letter from Adam basically saying he might have to do something drastic because of how in love with Elizabeth he is. If he can't let Lori down easy, or if he can't shake her or whatever. So, because I mean the big evidence against Adam is that the body was in his car, you know, and the story, because Adam and Lori were keeping their engagement secret and their relationship secret, it could look from an outsider like he was the one who was obsessed with her, but Jessica knows that Adam didn't do it. Like, she knows that the one who's guilty is this guy she saw in the parking garage carrying a body, who was a blonde guy driving a white Trans Am. And number 2, Jessica knows that Adam didn't write this letter, so now she's really in big trouble. She also, though, for a lot of the book, doesn't know that she doesn't know that the letter has been entered as evidence. Like, because since Elizabeth never talks to her about it, never talks to anybody about it, except for, Elizabeth never talks to Adam or Jessica about it, is what
just
I'm trying to say. So, all the way on page 109, here is when Jessica finds out. Kara and Stephen are hanging out. Kara says, "I wish there was something we could do." "Yeah," Stephen agreed. "It was bad enough before that letter. Now it really looks as if Adam's been lying all along, like he was only going out with Lori because of her money." "Letter?" Jessica demanded, her eyes narrowing. "What letter?" "Liz didn't tell you?" Stephen said incredulously. "Boy, that's weird." Which, like, yeah, it's super weird. But it's more convenient for the book, right? She was, at least the author knows that it's weird. So hang a lantern on it. All right, anyway. "Boy, that's weird. She was up for a long time last night telling Dad about it. They took it to Sergeant Wilson this morning."
Yeah, let's talk about Sergeant Wilson. Sergeant Wilson is a hoot. I can't. He's a device, but I mean, he's this blabbermouthy sergeant that seems to tell everything, even to Jessica, and which wouldn't be the task of a sergeant, certainly not a detective, because he has that role too. He tells her everything that's going on, despite the fact that Jessica is a witness, which would be so unprofessional to pollute the witness base by influencing her. And he just tells her everything going on. And then to top it all off, he says, "Oh, we've never had a murder in this town, and the police are scared." Well, first of all, that's something the police would never just say, "Yeah, we're all scared." And second of all, the type of murder it is a domestic violence thing, is not what, like there's some terrorist running or sniper running around town. He's just a bizarre figure.
Yeah, I thought it was shocking to read that there had never been a murder in Sweet Valley before. Like, that's, I mean, never? Not of any kind? Like, people got murdered in Chesterton. I can think of a few. Like, that's a small town, like population 10,000. Like, I don't know. That seems really shocking that nobody would have ever been murdered in Sweet Valley. But Jessica, when she goes to tell the sergeant, and she's about the letter being from her. Yeah, and he's kind of like, he doesn't want her to tell Adam about the letter. There's a lot of like, well, don't tell anybody, but Jessica thinks that she knows. Sorry. And the very important thing is that everybody is really worried that, if there is this other guy who saw Jessica, who like made eye contact, then he would recognize the car, their Fiat that they drive around, that the twins drive around. So they can't drive the Fiat anymore because they could get spotted like this. If there really is a real murderer out there, then the only thing that could potentially, implicate him is this witness. So if it's basically like, you have to watch out for this guy, he could be looking for you. And sure enough, like one day, Jessica is driving the car and she sees the Trans Am again. Like, so she knows that this guy hasn't left town. She recognizes the guy driving it. She recognizes the scratch on the back of it. So she knows that he's still around. And then there's
But the
go
thing
ahead.
she doesn't know, all she's been able to identify is it's a white Trans Am with an S on it. And they're stopping the thing. He pulls away. What would anybody who's supposedly investigating? She doesn't look for the license plate.
License plate. She still doesn't look for. I had the same thought when I read it. Like, Jessica, come on! I know you're scared.
And particularly if you read detective novels, everybody gets the license plate number.
Yeah. Oh, but so after the letter goes to the police, then there's this terrible newspaper article that comes out, not written by Seth Miller, because he's not on this important beat. I can read that too. It's written by somebody named Dan Weeks. A local girl has supplied police with a letter that implicates chief suspect Adam Maitland, 18, in the murder of Lori Hamilton last Tuesday in Sweet Valley, a police spokesman announced today. In a typewritten letter to the local girl, a minor whose name police have not disclosed, Maitland allegedly wrote that he no longer loved the victim, 17-year-old Lori Hamilton. The letter went on to state that Maitland had fallen in love with the girl who received the letter. "You're all I really want in this whole world, and if I can't figure out something soon, I may have to do something drastic," Maitland allegedly wrote. Police found Hamilton's body in the trunk of Maitland's car last Tuesday night after Maitland called them to report the murder. Miss Hamilton, the granddaughter of millionaire Tucker Hamilton, had been strangled. According to police, a rope that may have been used to murder Miss Hamilton was found in the glove compartment of Maitland's car. Maitland told police he found the body in his car, which was parked in the parking lot of the Western Building, after leaving work at Wells & Wells, a law firm with offices in the building. Police arrested Maitland Tuesday evening. A trial is scheduled to begin in 2 weeks. So Jessica reads the story and is just like, oh shit. And she goes to Seth, right, and tells him, like, listen, I know that he didn't write that letter. Like, if you work with me, I know we can find the guy who really did this. And I was very much expecting Seth to be like, go to hell. But there's very little of that. There's a little bit of him resisting before he's like, okay, well, this is my shot, I guess. So tell me what you know.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things. First of all, a murder trial going in 2 weeks, like, that barely give the defense any time to get any evidence.
Yeah,
and they don't even have any forensic evidence in terms of like, oh, there's a rope. There's fingerprints on it or something that connects the anything with the guy, it's in. It's just, and they're not investigating any of the other possible leads, which I guess isn't, that kind of stuff happens, but it just is kind of bizarre.
And when Jessica takes Seth to talk to Adam is very he's defensive because he's tired of answering reporters' questions, but he's also a little bit despondent. He's basically they're going to send me away. I've been framed. There's no hope for me.
His love has died, and he doesn't know why.
Yeah. Yeah, lest I forget. Yeah, he's really heartbroken. I mean, grieving, so he's in a very dark place. But
can we point out one other strange thing?
Oh, something's happening.
Yeah, it's my sister. I'll have to talk to her later. Sorry, folks. Cut that out. Where are we here?
You were going to point something out. Do you know what it was?
I don't know what it was, but it'll come back to me.
Well, we were talking about Adam being in prison and being grief-stricken and despondent. And what I was going to say was that Jessica, has this brilliant idea to, shake him out of it by basically making him think about how great it would be to get revenge on the guy that really did it.
Yeah.
And that works. And now Adam is he's got a newfound passion, which is revenge. So now Jessica and Seth are on the case. They're going to find this guy.
I remember the point I was going to make.
Go ahead.
It's the point that one of the motive they attributed to Adam killing his girlfriend was money, and yet it's pretty clearly established that she had been going to be cut off if she married him. So there was no money to be had. So
I had the same thought. What? That doesn't make any sense. What money could... And Adam even points that out. What money could I possibly gain through killing her? It literally makes no sense.
Which means the only relating motive in the police's mind, or alleged motive, was he just decided to reject her for Elizabeth, which is pretty far-fetched.
Yeah, and then the overwhelming circumstantial evidence, but that's still not proof, And I think because it's interesting that Adam's the one that called in the murder. So if he called it in and said he didn't do it, I don't know. That seems call for a very serious investigation of who might have done it.
And so they're going to trial in 2 weeks and haven't completed an investigation. They haven't even interviewed Elizabeth about this letter and her relationship with them. It's just kind of...
This is kind of it's kind of like Perry Mason, right? When the new one where the town is so clamoring for an end to this case that the police just want to push it through.
That's what it has to believe. Yeah.
It does help it narratively. That's a good device, which is probably why they used it on Perry Mason.
Yeah.
But I'm also in this book. So, Jessica and Seth are on the case. And I guess it's important to note that Jessica doesn't know that the guy she saw carrying the body was Tom Winslow. We called it out, but not a ton is made of that guy, of who he is, what he looks like when he's first mentioned.
He's big and big and blonde. We know that,
Yeah. So that's what Jessica knows. And it's not until later in the book when she goes to talk to Adam about who else could possibly have wanted to kill her, and that she finds out that what Tom Winslow roughly sounds like it could be the guy that she saw, but she's not sure that that's him or anything. She's just suspicious.
Yeah.
So then there's this whole the whole end game of the book is unfolding around this office party that's going to happen at the newspaper office. The twins are forbidden to drive the Fiat anywhere. They're allowed to drive Steven's car, but there's something wrong with the clutch.
Oh yeah, which by the way, it doesn't turn over. If a car doesn't turn over, it's not the clutch.
And on their way to the party, they're getting ready to leave, and the police call and want to talk to Jessica. So now Elizabeth has to go to the party by herself. So she's going to drive Steven's car there. And the cops are going to come pick Jessica up from the police station. And as I recall, tell me if I'm wrong here, Dad, I think the reason Jessica doesn't want Elizabeth to take her to the police station is because then Elizabeth will come in, and Jessica doesn't want Elizabeth to know that she wrote the letter from Adam.
Yes.
Like, she's still keeping that secret from Elizabeth.
Yes. Let Adam rot, because I'm not going to come clean.
Well, I think Jessica thinks that she's trying to fix the problem. Like, she's come clean to the police. She doesn't need to come clean to Elizabeth. She thinks she's going to get away with this. So she can solve everything. I mean, honestly, on some level, I can relate to this aspect of Jessica's personality, where it's like, if I can just fix the problem that I made before anyone finds out about it, then I'll be good. You know, like, that's what she thinks. Of course, everybody has found out about it, so it's really pretty silly. The only person she's keeping it secret from is her family. But so Elizabeth, since the police are going to come pick Jessica up because it's really important, and she'll go to the party later, Elizabeth is going to take the car, but of course, she, like you said, the engine won't turn over. So she's like, you know what? I really want to make a good impression. It's so important that I go to this party, because she's still, like, Jessica's making more headway in the newspaper office than Elizabeth is. So she's kind of jealous about that. So she takes the Fiat. She's like, what could it possibly hurt? She takes the Fiat to the office party. In the meantime, Jessica has gone to the police station. She's talked to them a little bit more about something or other. I don't remember exactly what that conversation is about, but she goes to the party, and Elizabeth still isn't there, because Elizabeth is at home trying to decide what to do about the car not working and driving the Fiat. And when Jessica gets to the party, she is introduced to someone.
So she's introduced to someone whose father's a good friend of Bob Carlyle, who works at the office, and it just what do you want me to say? It just happens to be the person being introduced is Tom Winslow, and so that.
Yeah, and this scene reveals that, despite all their fears, Tom Winslow didn't recognize Jessica on sight. Like, he thought that she looked familiar, but he didn't attribute, he just asks her a ton of questions, like a scene we've seen a million times, like, oh, where do I know you from? You know, building the suspense. Oh, it was that yacht party. Or like, wait, I know what I know you from. And then Jessica's like clenched with fear, like, oh no, he's gonna say it. But no, then he names like, oh, didn't you go to school with my friend's sister? You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So Seth has walked away, and like, Jessica wants to get a chance to tell Seth, this is the guy, we can't let him leave, but he's like coming on. Tom is coming on to Jessica, and Tom, did I say his name right?
Yeah, Tom Winslow, and he's asking her to leave the party so they can get it on.
Yeah. And well, whatever, like, go on a date, like, shit, Dad. Oh my God!
He's
Dad.
hitting on her. Okay. He's hitting on a girl at the party, and an underage girl at that. So
okay.
Sorry.
He's definitely giving off predatory vibes, but we already know he's a murderer, so it's hard not to read everything he says as predatory.
She knows it too.
Yeah.
Or thinks.
But she's not able to get Tom to she like leaves Tom anyway. Right at the same time, it's all horribly coming together at the same moment, as Tom is walking to his car in the parking lot while Elizabeth pulls up in the Fiat, and Tom doesn't know that they're twins, right? So he thinks that he's seeing the same girl he just talked to. He's connecting the dots, like, the car I recognize, the girl I recognize. This is the girl who saw me with the body, like, and she's gonna die.
I know. And just conveniently, because there's always a ton of these in garage, there's a lead pipe around on the floor.
Also, the book has established that there are security guards on every level, but the security guard on this level, like when he hears, well, first let me say, I have established in the regular series an oh my God moment, which if there's ever a time in the book where I say oh my God out loud, I will let the readers know. And there was one of those. Elizabeth pulls into the parking lot. To her surprise, the 5th floor was full. There were more people at the party than she had thought. She was just about to circle up to level 6 when she saw headlights shining at the end of aisle J. Someone was about to leave. Thank goodness, Elizabeth said. She drove slowly down aisle I, turned the corner, and pulled up just short of the car that was pulling out so she could wait for the spot. Elizabeth was thinking distractedly about the news and what the party would be like, thinking too hard to notice that the car was a white Trans Am and that the driver, a clean-cut blonde man in a tweed jacket, was staring at her, an expression of horror on his handsome face. And I said, oh my gosh. So the book got me, I guess. Yeah. Although I have read this book before, I would like to state for the record. But it was a long time ago, so like over 10 years ago.
Well, the part that I was a little bit confused when I read this is he thinks Elizabeth is Jessica, but he was just at the party with Jessica and left the party with Jessica at the party, and all of a sudden he gets to the garage and like time travel. She's already she's in a car waiting to pull in. I don't know.
He says that to her, actually. So he, like, blocks her in with his car. He gets out, and he says to her, I don't suppose you'd care to explain how you managed to get from the party out here with this cute little car in a matter of seconds. You know, he doesn't understand how she did it, but somehow she did. And, yeah, so he basically, like, attacks her. She screams, and when a security guard runs to stop them, he... I don't know, what does he do? He
takes a
smacks him. It's the lead pipe. Okay.
There's a lead pipe because they're all over the floors of garage these days. I don't know. And he hits the security guard with it. You know,
maybe he just had the lead. No, I guess he found the lead pipe.
He found a lead pipe. I mean, the one thing I would imagine a garage at that level does not leave lead pipes around. You know, because. But anyway.
Well, the one thing I know about public garages is that there are not lead pipes lying around. I think that's probably true, honestly. But, like, where would it have come from? Like, why would there just be a lead pipe anywhere? Like, that's not some... Anyway.
I mean, maybe you could have said there was a tailpipe that a rusted tailpipe or something that came off a car, but lead pipes, like...
That would not be as good of a weapon, though, because it's not as heavy, you know?
No, but, yeah.
But I mean, it's from here. It's all very exciting. You know, Jessica runs out. She hears Elizabeth scream, and then like the two of them together are both kind of like trying to talk him down from, you know, beating them to death, essentially. But at some point, I mean, I could read the scene, but it's just so long. Okay, let me see if I can find the best passage to read here, because there's a lot of steps to this, like. Maybe this you little idiot part. So Jessica catches up to Elizabeth and Tom, and they're trying to run away. They there's a tire iron at some point that he gets clubbed with, and they try to run away. They were almost as far as the guard booth when they heard Tom's chilling voice behind them. Take one more step, he said icily, and I'll bash your heads in. He rubbed his eyes. God knows why there's two of you, but I'll get you both, he said menacingly. The twins froze. Turn around, both of you, Tom ordered. When they obliged, he went on in his threatening, icy voice. Now walk toward me, slowly. Jessica met her sister's horrified glance as they inched their way toward the crazed young man. She could see her own terror mirrored in Elizabeth's face. Tom was the most gruesome, frightening sight she had ever seen. She felt her knees buckle as she tried to focus on him. The spot where she had hit him with a tire iron was swollen and bleeding badly. Oh, so I guess Elizabeth is the one that hit him with a tire iron.
Yeah.
But the most frightening thing about Tom's appearance was the expression of deadly calm on his face. What are we going to do? Elizabeth whispered out of the side of her mouth. Tom moved forward, the lead pipe in his hands. He gripped it so tightly it trembled. We've just got to run, Jessica hissed. Try to make it to the door. You go first and I'll come after you. As Elizabeth started for the door, Jessica lunged forward, trying to wrest the weapon from Tom's hand. Tom, astonished, wounded, and completely dazed, took several seconds to grasp what was happening. His immediate instinct to strike out with the pipe was hampered by Jessica, who had managed to pin his arm behind his back. "You little idiot," he muttered, jerking his arm free and lifting the lead pipe. He inched toward her again. "I'm gonna bash your head in, you hear me?" Jessica stared past him, completely numb with relief as she realized that Elizabeth had made it to the stairs in time. She backed away, holding her hands out in front of her. "I promise not to give you any more trouble," she said weakly. "Honestly, Tom, whatever you want me to do, I'll do." "Just shut up," Tom said, roughly, jumping forward and grabbing her. "I've heard enough out of you. In fact, I think it's just about time I shut you up for good." So very scary stuff, but luckily Seth Miller and the security guard find Elizabeth, and all of them kind of Elizabeth faints, so she can't help. And then Seth and the security guard find Tom and subdue him.
And Jessica pulls the alarm, right? I mean, probably she pulled the alarm, and that's what made him come. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Let's see here. Elizabeth. Just then, Elizabeth's eyes fell on the fire alarm. Elizabeth pulls the fire alarm right before she faints. Okay. That's what happens. I actually don't think I noticed that when I first read it.
It's much more dramatic that way, isn't it?
Yeah. So she pulls it, and the alarm starts pulsing. So that. I mean, it was a good call because now everybody knows there's something. The police are coming too because she pulls the alarm. So anyway. Seth, at the end, after the rescue, Seth lifts Jessica gently in his arms. "Are you all right?" he asked tenderly, brushing her hair away from her forehead. "Geez, Jessica, you've been so brave. I can't believe what you've been through. Do you realize what you've done? You caught the murderer." She caught the murderer. Tom gets taken to jail, and Adam will be free. Laurie Hamilton is still dead, so not exactly a happy ending, but
yeah.
The one thing that I thought was so funny about this ending, not to rush. Well, I guess before I say it, do you have anything you want to say about the scene of horror that took place in the climax of the book?
No, I thought it was pretty well paced. We said, some of the terms under which it happened are a little bit unexplained between pipes and all this stuff. And even that the book says that Seth Miller brushes her hair back if somebody's, that's not the normal thing one would expect to do when one's consoling somebody after a trauma. Yeah, I mean, that's somebody one doesn't know, okay, good.
All right. Well, Seth Miller's behavior back in question. But something that I thought was so funny about this was that after all this happened and the Tom's taken in by the police, well, Mr. and Mrs. Wakefield have been out that night, right? That's why the twins had to supposedly were supposed to use Stephen's car. And
does it seem like they're always out? I mean, in all these books,
they are out. They're out a lot. Yeah, they go out a lot. So the twins are all Liz, Jessica said solemnly, "We've got to stop bickering and think about more important things, such as how we're going to explain to Mom and Dad that you drove the Fiat tonight." The Fiat's windshield has been smashed in. The girls were both almost killed. They caught a murderer. And Jessica's what are we going to tell Mom and Dad about the fact that we drove the car when we weren't supposed to? Or that you drove the car?
This may be inappropriate, but it seems to me odd that under those circumstances, Elizabeth is supposedly the good one, decides she'll drive the car. Why couldn't she have called her parents under this kind of stress or something? She says, "I need to go to this party. It's important, and I don't have a way to get there." I mean, there's just an odd relationship, it seems to me.
The only excuse that I can give is that Elizabeth has been kept in the dark about a lot of the details of what's really going on with this other murderer. I don't think that Elizabeth maybe even fully believes in the existence of the other murderer. And so she just doesn't really think what harm could it possibly do to drive the car at night to the newspaper office. What could possibly come of this? But you're right. It's not a very Elizabeth thing to do for her to she does try to call her friends. She tries to call a few of her friends to get a ride. That's why she's so late, actually. she tries to call around to see if anybody can take her. Oh, and I guess we didn't say that Jeffrey French is away at a kids camp. Like, he's a counselor at a summer camp. So he can't drive her.
Right. So,
but that's also part of why Jessica thinks she has this opening to set Elizabeth up with somebody else. It's just like, why would you spend the summer after your junior year pining away for some boy who's not even in town?
Yeah. At some point, I think we need to talk about Jessica in this book. So maybe we don't need to, but I have to say that
that's what the podcast is for.
I know. As a madcap book of hijinks, Jessica has a fun little role, but from a serious point of view, if someone were to behave like Jessica she did, both her sister and her parents would have to think that this person has serious personality disorder. I mean, I mean, she's lying. She's making things up. She can't keep things straight. I mean, what I thought of this, Marissa, was the crazy ex-girlfriend.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the borderline personality, or I don't know if that's right diagnosis, but she's throwing herself into all kinds of stuff that puts people in jeopardy. And the stuff she did to her sister with this letter is just so bad. She's got real problems. She's not going to be able to have a stable relationship when she grows up. And her parents
she's
never
making
seem to figure anything out.
Yeah. Well, and it is very weird how, like, Jessica it's always sort of like, oh, that's our Jessica.
Yeah.
Because she does, in this book, she makes up a lot of stories that could potentially get people into a lot of trouble, and then do get people into a lot of trouble in different ways than Jessica herself is predicting or could ever have imagined. And there's a lot of scheming. She's really trying to control other people's lives through her actions. She's really never thinking more than one step ahead, even though she's always scheming. It's like she's only thinking of, like, I'm sure about step one of my scheme, and then she imagines how things are going to unfold from there in a way that's completely fantastical. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
And she seems,
like, I think she thinks.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
And she seems incapable to learning from her mistakes or owning up for her responsibility in them fully. It's just kind of serious.
Yeah.
I mean, this is fun. Read it that way, but if somebody really, you saw this in real life, you'd have serious issues. You'd say that person has serious issues. So
yeah, no, it's like, let's get this lady to the therapist. She's. I mean, they both twins. I mean, most of the teens in Sweet Valley should probably be in therapy, just considering the various things that they've endured. Because this is. I made a joke in the intro about how they're solving crimes now, but the series has had all sorts of crazy crimes. Elizabeth was kidnapped. That's just the first thing that comes to mind. But, like, that's a big one. Elizabeth was kidnapped. She was kidnapped by a deranged orderly and kept in a undisclosed location for several days. So, like, and they just brush it off, which I suppose would be mentally healthy if you got the sense that they were dealing with it at all.
Yeah.
But as we say on this podcast, there's no trauma in Sweet Valley, so they'll just brush it off, and that's why in no other books, well, it's one reason why in none of the other books do we ever hear about the crimes that they were solving at the newspaper. I think a main reason is that the crimes, just time-wise, the crimes haven't happened yet because this is the summer after junior year, but it's all very complicated.
This is esoteric, but can I point out one other thing that struck me as funny is that here Mr. Wakefield is a lawyer, and Elizabeth is an aspiring journalist working at a paper for this internship. And early in the book, she says, if somebody goes out and says it would be liable. And I think any lawyer or any journalist knows the difference between liability and slander. And I just thought that was kind of a strange thing to her to say.
So what you're saying is that while Elizabeth and Ned should know the difference, the author of this book did not know the difference.
Yeah. That was, if she was really an aspiring journalist, she'd know that journalists worry about libel and not slander. So there we go. Anyway. That's your esoteric trivia for the day.
Well, that's your gift, Dad. So I appreciate that you giving that gift to me and to all of our listeners. As we like to do on Sweet Valley Diaries, I thought it might be appropriate to talk a little bit about boys.
Who's a beautiful boy, who's a beautiful boys. I'm in danger of losing my head.
We got some good descriptions of some of the boys in this book. So I just want to go through them real quick. First, we have our introduction to Seth Miller. Just thinking about Seth Miller's curly black hair and gorgeous green eyes made her shiver. He had the most adorable little cleft in his chin and a deep dimple when he smiled, and he was just tall enough and broad enough to make his stylish clothes look fabulous. So far, it was true. He hadn't paid that much attention to her, Jessica thought, but she was confident she could change that. Another really funny thing about Seth Miller is that toward the end of the book, I almost feel like this is the author making a little joke with herself. An intimate little office party on Saturday night seemed incredibly romantic to her, especially since Seth was driving them there. Oh, I forgot that too. Seth was supposed to drive them to the party and had to cancel at the last minute. So that was another wrinkle in the whole car driving debacle. Okay, so especially since Seth was driving them there, maybe Elizabeth could find some other way home from the party, and she and Seth could stop at Miller's Point on the way home to look at the Valley Lights. In fact, she could deliberately mention it. Ask Seth if his family was related to the Miller whom the park was named for. Which I thought was funny. It was just like, almost as, to me, I was picturing this scenario where like Miller's Point is an established location in the book that they created this character named Seth Miller, and it wasn't until the author was writing this sentence that she realized, like, oh damn, the character I gave the same last name as the makeout place.
Yeah,
we'll just work it into the story. I thought that was funny.
I guess she could have asked it as a joke or something, but otherwise she comes off as really dumb,
Yeah, Miller, not an uncommon name. Okay, so that's Seth. Here is our description of Adam Maitland. Jessica was watching Adam with fascination. Sure enough, he proved to be unusually good-looking. Unusually a funny choice of words here, since everybody is good-looking. Okay. Tall, thin, with sandy blonde hair and elegant features, he seemed to be just Elizabeth's type. Serious, intellectual, kind. He had a deep, quiet voice that demanded attention when he spoke. And to Jessica's delight, Elizabeth was listening more intently than anyone when Adam described his growing commitment to the study of law. So, that's Adam. Very, very sexy. Okay, and then one more, just for fun, just to show that the book doesn't discriminate and make only... I mean, anybody who's been following along with the podcast knows that bad guys can be handsome too. So here we have our introduction to Tom Winslow. This is when Jessica sees him at the party, not when she sees him at the garage. She doesn't objectify him when she sees him carrying a dead body, much to her credit. He was a little shorter than she remembered, about 5'9", with thick blonde hair that touched the top of his collar. Under any other circumstances, Jessica would have found him handsome. He had a strong, square jaw and piercing dark green eyes. He had a good build, too, which was emphasized by his tailored European-style clothes. All in all, he looked clean-cut and respectable. So respectable, in fact, that Jessica was beginning to wonder if she was nuts. Could this be the wrong guy? No, the coincidence was too great. She had seen the white Trans Am, and now she'd seen him. It all fit together too well. Under any other circumstances, that reminds me of the book where another kidnapping happened. This was the kidnapping of Regina, R.I.P., where the Nicholas Morrow and Bruce Patman and the twins are all trying to get the son of this guy who's blackmailing Regina's dad to like distract him to like basically like a honeypot kind of scenario. And Jessica is absolutely like, oh, look at this kid. Like he's he's mowing the lawn with no sleeves. Like, I mean, in fairness to Jessica and to that guy, that kid was not like a bad guy. He was the son of the bad guy, but it was like, it reminds me of that. Just like, don't mind if I do.
Well, I guess they have to throw a bunch of that in there, but sometimes when you with all the descriptions of the guys and the cars, you wonder if there's some little side thing like algorithm that we decide what everybody's going to look like or drive.
Oh, that's a good point. Spoken like a true software programmer. Maybe you can build a program down to decide what. That's going to be a retirement project for you. Yeah. The sort of Sweet Valley character description algorithm.
Oh, well, maybe you could write a Mad Libs thing to fill them in.
Oh, that sounds fun. That sounds a lot easier. For me, at least. Well, so Dad, given the events of this book, the normal question is, are you a Jessica or an Elizabeth? I don't know if maybe there's some other character in the book that you might relate to. Did you have a hero of the book, a person that you were really connecting with?
Well, clearly I'm not a Jessica. I mean, I may need therapy, but I'm not aspiring to be Jessica. So I'll go with Elizabeth, but even Elizabeth, if I had a sister like Jessica, I'd have a lot more suspicion of what she's doing than Elizabeth has.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think that if Elizabeth were at a like normal, sane level of suspicion of her sister, a lot of the stories would just not really go anywhere. So it's like, I think it's kind of important for story reasons that Elizabeth sort of go along with it, but it is so frustrating. I mean, I guess on the flip side, they could have the twins be less loving to each other, like be more at war and have conflict there. And there are some books that build that up, but there's something that's sort of dissatisfying about that. But I say that also being annoyed on a regular basis at how quickly Elizabeth forgives Jessica for things that she does. So I don't know.
Well,
it's complicated.
It is. And I guess it's kind of fun in its own way, but as I look back to coming out of middle school and high school, I mean, people were endlessly analyzing other people's motives and making judgments. Not always best, but they were obsessed with that. And so from a certain point of view, the naivete of these people almost times strikes me as elementary school level,
Sure.
I mean, isn't that how you remember high school? People say, well, she's doing that or he's just like that. You always impute what's going on to, you're trying to make sense of it.
Absolutely. To a maddening degree. People are always trying to come up with making up even things that other people think about other people. Absolutely. It's something that takes up a lot of middle school and high school energy.
Yeah.
Well, before we say goodbye, there's kind of a fun thing at the back of my book. I don't know if your copy has this. Gladiators, one reason for the delay of this episode was that I ended up having to order a second copy of the book and wait for it to come in the mail.
Double jeopardy.
Yeah. Oh, I see. So at the very back of this copy of the book, there is an advertisement. It says, it's a picture of a little camera on a keychain, and it says, now you can become a super sleuth too. The first 10,000 readers to send in this coupon plus $2.50 for postage and handling will receive their own Super Sleuth Sweet Valley High miniature camera. Average retail value $13.95. Supplies are limited, so order yours today. Offer good only while supplies last and is void after June 30th, 1988. Womp womp.
Gee, your book has it how much? $2?
$2.50.
Oh, mine's $2.95.
Ooh, it's the same ad, but you had to send in 45 more cents.
Well, maybe I'm reading the wrong one. Yeah, they're all $2.95. So a super sleuth.
No, you would know if it's a super sleuth.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Is your offer also void after June 30th, 1988?
No, mine's after January of 89.
Oh, okay. So they raised the price when they didn't get enough requests. 10,000 is a lot of people mailing in this coupon.
Can I just say something? Because of this, Adam was, and sent to jail, I guess it was, or holding in this thing. I thought somehow, naive that I was, that Double Jeopardy was going to refer to his situation of being tried twice for the same crime, but that's not the title.
No. Instead, it has no secondary meaning. It's just there's two of them and they're in jeopardy.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
You want to know something super weird I just noticed, Dad?
What's that?
You know how you said that your sister called you during the podcast?
Uh-huh.
Well, on the left side of the inside cover of this book is a purple stamp. Somebody has stamped their copy of the book. It says Linda. And which is your sister's name, but if that's not weird enough, at the very top left corner of the very front page of the book, someone has written in pencil, Kay.
Oh, wow.
Which is her middle name. Weird. You see lots of coincidences if you just pay attention, gladiators.
Yeah.
That's my life advice. Pay attention and you'll see. When I was driving home from Santa Fe, I was listening to a podcast where they roll a die to see what number from a list they're going to pick for the next episode. It's a movie podcast. And they said 109 at the exact moment that I was passing exit 109 on the highway.
Oh, okay.
So I'm not saying that doesn't mean anything other than if you just pay attention. Lots of coincidences. Coincidences abound. You just gotta keep your head on a swivel.
I know, and if you're writing these books, they all add up to something.
Yeah. Well, if you're writing these books, the coincidences will take you a long way. Well, Father dear, thank you very much for being a guest once again on one of the super editions of this podcast.
Well, it was fun,
even though
and a fun book.
Yeah. Hey, I told you that the second half of this book was going to be a breeze to read. Did you find it to go a lot faster as it went along?
I found the whole book fairly easy to read, despite all my criticisms of what's going on. It was actually...
All right. Well, and unfortunately, gladiators, if you want to read Double Jeopardy, you're going to have to go on the internet and order yourself a copy. I hesitate to divulge my secret source for Sweet Valley High novels, but I like to order from Abe Books, ABEBOOKS. That's a site that consolidates used bookstores around the country, around the world. So it's recycling. It's not patronizing Amazon, and it's like your shop. It's kind of like you're shopping from a small retailer. That's how I see it, at least. So anyway, Abe Books.
And
this is not a paid advertisement.
Special credit if you can get a version of the book that's gives you promos for only $2.50.
Yeah, the $2.50 copy is it's really, really coveted. I want to do something with this page. I want to cut out this little slip and make a magnet out of it or something. Sweet Valley High Camera. Sent to a P.O. box in Holland, Illinois.
Oh, wow. South Chicago.
Yeah. Daddy, thank you so much. And gladiators, next time I speak to you, it will be in another part of the hiatus, and we'll be talking about another super edition. Will it be Spring Fever? Will it be On the Run? Super Thriller number 2? It's yet to be decided. If you want to let me know what you think it should be, you can send me a message on Twitter, where I'm at Sweet Valley, or on Instagram, of course, at Sweet Valley Diaries. Or as always, you can email the podcast at sweetvalleydiaries@me.com. And thank you so much for everyone that has rated and reviewed the podcast on Apple Podcasts. I really, really, really appreciate it. And yeah, we'll talk to you again soon.
Stay safe, everybody, and don't park in garages with lead pipes lying around.
That could be a sign-off. Yeah. Avoid. No, it's too long. Like, goodbye, everybody, and avoid garages with lead pipes.
So does that make me Miss America?
Here we go again. I don't know what to do about all this. I just turned my...
Maybe you should just answer it and tell her you'll call her back.
I don't know how to answer this because I don't know why it's ringing. I just turned my phone off. How can this be happening?
Where is it ringing?
It's on my iPad.
Oh, okay.
I'll turn my iPad off too. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks heaven for editing.
But unfortunately, I think you've still forgotten what it was that you wanted to say.